Hello, everybody. This is Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard. So, some changes are going to be coming to the channel. We'll talk about that. What we're going to talk about today, though, is some really interesting revelations that have come to me recently about Rahu and Ketu. So, if you're not familiar with Rahu and Ketu, on a Vedic astrological perspective, Vedic astrology is the astrology of East India. And the north and south nodes of the moon, respectively, are called Rahu and Ketu. Rahu represents what karma brings you into manifestation, and Ketu represents the dharma that releases you into the next life, into enlightenment. Rahu brings you into manifestation, Ketu takes you out. So we're going to be talking about the focus of that, the job of Rahu and Ketu, but I'm going to share with you something that I've just come to realize within myself, and now that I've looked at other people's charts and I've listened to them, I've realized something incredibly powerful. And that is that when you're here, incarnated in this life, there are going to be things that you have a natural tendency for, a natural mastery for. You may even have a love for them. And if you try to make those things the focus of your life, they actually will drain you of your life force. And it can be very confusing because these will be the things that you are absolutely total masters of. And yet when you engage in them, they actually start to take your life force away from you. And then you have the things in life that you want to learn, the things you want to achieve, your greatest desires, and these are things that you're drawn to do, that you may even have some ability for, but these are things that you're supposed to learn how to do in this life. And these are the things that may not bring you success and happiness, but there is definitely a skill that you've come to use in this life, come to learn in this life. And so these two things are opposing each other. They're pulling against each other and working with each other. And so the aspect and the skills that you have learned in previous lives that you are a master of in this life that you may not even be aware of or care a whole heck of a lot about, that mastery is driving you towards the things that you want to accomplish, want to learn, want to achieve. And so you have to learn the balance between the two. Now, what ends up happening a lot of times, certainly happened with me, it's happened with somebody else that I was just talking to, and when I looked at this person's chart, it all came together for me and I knew exactly what was happening. But what happens sometimes is that the thing that you've mastered in previous lives, there's still a little bit of residual karma left that you have to balance out. And so you will maybe early in your life or the first half of your life before the age of 35, you may dive into these things and think this is why I'm here. And you may pour a lot of time and effort into it. And what will end up happening is that no matter how hard you try to make something out of that deep, there will be a deep inner awareness and desire associated with it. Like beyond just, anything superficial. And you may think this is why I'm here. And you will try and become those things or do those things, and then for reasons that you can't seem to explain, you won't be able to make it work. You won't be able to be successful at them. Then you'll find that it starts draining you. It starts to drain you of your life force energy. And then what usually happens is at some point before the age of 35, you let that go. You will be forced to let go of that. Some people will never really have to deal with it, and it'll be something that I've always been able to do that, but I don't care about it. For some people, it'll be like, this is why I came into this life, but I couldn't make it work, and it was so saddening, and so now I'm doing this thing. That was me. The second one was me. So we could talk about different houses where Rahu and K2 are sitting. So bottom line is K2. K2 represents that which you've mastered in a previous life, that you have a tiny little bit of karma left, that you have to dabble in it, and then you have to dabble in it enough to go, okay, I've mastered it, and this isn't it for me. This isn't my thing. And then you have to let it go. And Rahu is the thing that you, early in life, you may not feel like you're very good at. For instance, when I was a kid, little kid, how old was I? 5. I remember being in Pee Wee League. Was it Pee Wee League baseball? I think it wasn't Pee Wee League. It might have actually been the first year of Little League. I think that's what it was. Where you actually, not just hitting it off of the tee, but, you're actually pitching to each other. And so I showed up and I wasn't very good. I wasn't a good ball player that first practice. But by the end of that season, I had been given the most improved player. And then I went on to pitch. I was a pitcher, and I was known for my fastball. I could just send it straight down the pike really fast and strike people out. So that is a good example of Rahu. Rahu is something that you may not even have a strong affinity for in the beginning of life, but as you get older, this is something you become drawn, pulled towards learning and doing and mastering. What I'm doing right here, right now, is Rahu for me. This is not something that if you had talked to me 15 years ago, I would have said, no, that's not me at all. I can't even imagine doing that. That would be. But as my life has progressed, this is something that not only I became necessary for me to do now, I really strongly want to master this. This is why I put so much effort into my channel, is because now I know, because now I'm a Vedic astrologer, I can see, Rahu is telling me, this is where you're going to find success in this life. This is where you should really learn and grow. So, for example, for me, maybe we can talk about different houses. I don't know if we'll do that today or not. But for me, I have Ketu. So I just got through talking about Rahu. So Rahu in my chart is in the 11th house in Gemini. So some of the characteristics of the 11th house with a Gemini is the 11th house is networking. The 11th house is networking with a lot of people. So that's the internet. The 11th house is what you gain in this life through hard work. This is your gains. You work for it. Whatever is in your 12th house, you work for that, and that's going to bring you gains, physical, monetary gains in this life. And so I work really hard. For me, I have to work at my business, or it falls apart. And so that's my 11th house. But it's that thing. If you work for it, it will give you gains. It will give you results, and that's what's going to end up giving you your success. So as I've gotten older in life, that 11th house has really become a focus for me. But early in my life, the opposite of the 11th house is the 5th house. And the 5th house has to do with, among other things, performance, singing, dancing, acting, music, among other things, a bunch of other things too. And so I've done those things. Now I had a theater company, which I'll just give you the story on this one. I founded a theater company. I went to college, and my second 4 years of college, I came out with a bachelor's in theater arts, and I then headed off with a handful of friends to Hollywood, and we founded a theater company. And I acted and wrote and directed, and while I was auditioning for film and television. And the thing about me is that when I was acting, Heath Ledger died from playing a role. I mean, he died technically from ODing, but I know for a fact he died from playing that role of the Joker. And it was his brilliant achievement, like just one of the most amazing acting portrayals in the history of movies. When he played that Joker, but it killed him. He identified so much with it that it destroyed him. That's the kind of stuff that would happen with me. I would play characters and parts, and it would take years off of my life. I ended up in the hospital. I was so drained from, I put so much of my energy and I would completely lose my identity in that, which is K2 as well. But no matter what, no matter how many accolades I got, no matter how many people, no matter how many movie stars, no matter how many casting directors or people who saw me perform would go, "Oh my God, you're the most amazing actor," I couldn't get any work. And once I quit the theater, I was there for 6 years. I got burnt out. I ended up going in the hospital, and then coming out of the hospital, I quit. Came back 6 months later. They didn't even know who I was. I knocked on the door, and they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I founded this theater." "We don't know who you are. You have to leave." That's K2. So for me, if I were to keep acting, it would just drain the life out of me. It would kill me. Because K2 represents death. It means leaving this world. So on the one hand, if I wanted to achieve enlightenment or moksha, I could just dedicate myself to, acting. And I tried it again the last time that I really put a lot of effort into it. I made a movie. I wrote, produced, directed, and acted in a movie that I wrote about serial killers, and it made me loopy, and it almost put me in the hospital, in the mental institution. So that's what K2 does. K2 is the thing that you have mastery of, but the idea is that K2 wants to destroy your ego attachment to it. So again, another example, I'm a master at Yoruba shamanic drumming, but when I perform, what happens is the top of my head, I can feel the crown chakra in my head completely open up, and I go all kinds of different places, and people are amazing, but I have to lie in bed for 2 days to come back in my body. So it's not pleasant for me. For some people, they play and it's a lot of fun and they can do it every day. I don't. If I'm playing the traditional African rhythms on a drum, I'm out for 2 days. And so I was teaching that class for a while, and it took a lot. I had to really stay dedicated because it was just too much for me. I play, you've heard some of my flute playing. Nobody taught me how to do that. I just pick it up and I play, but I have no ego about it. I could care less. I just doesn't matter to me. That's K2. So depending on what's going on in your chart, in case you're interested, you can go here to astrology.thunderwizard.com, and you can find out where your Rahu and K2 is in your chart. And again, it's good to know what your age is. I just talked with somebody today who, same thing. This was somebody who has K2 in their 10th house. And so the 10th house is fame. And this is somebody who is a musician who's really trying to make it big, in the music biz. And this person isn't able to, extremely talented, very good at what they do. Everybody who listens to it loves their work. But no matter how hard this person tries, they can't make it, in the biz, and it's draining them. It's literally just draining them of their life force energy because of all the garbage and the craziness of the superficiality, the nepotism, all that stuff. And that's because when I looked at this person's chart, I saw, K2's in your 10th house. If you try to go after fame, it'll drain you of your life force energy. You have mastery. You've been famous in a previous life. That's why it's like, this is a perfect example. Superman has kryptonite. Well, what is kryptonite? Kryptonite is an actual chunk of the planet that he came from, which has been destroyed. But it's where he came from. But if you put him next to a piece of the planet where he came from, it will kill him. That's the perfect example of K2. It's where you've come from. And so, for me in a previous life, obviously I was an extremely successful actor, performer, musician. I have all kinds of skills. I can pick up pretty much any instrument and play it in no time, and I can, act and be anybody at the drop of a hat, but it drains me. It's my kryptonite. It drains me. Same with this person. Now, this person has a future in being a musician. I saw that their career is as a musician and a creative person, but it wasn't in being, a big record star, records. I don't know what the hell what do we call them now? Records, CDs, what do we call them now? Albums. That's not where this person is going to, where their singing career is going to take them. In fact, it'll drain them of their life force. So each one of us has that, and it's right up until about the age of 35, and that was the case with me as well. The last time that I acted on stage was probably, how old was I? I think I was in my early 40s. And that was when I did it, and it was great, and I just said, yeah, I'm done with this. You can't pay me enough to do this. It's so much work, and there's nothing, I don't get anything out of it. It's just, and that's because my K2 sits there. Now, where your Rahu is sitting, it's going to be hard work as you continue to learn and master where Rahu is sitting. But what will happen is that you will be empowered. The more that you do it, no matter how hard it is or how much effort it takes, you will be empowered by that, and you will learn and grow and want to keep doing it. You'll want to keep working at it as you get older and older, and that's definitely been the case for me. So, and there's all kinds of other things in your chart that'll tell you, if and when you're going to be super successful. Will you be successful later in life? And the good thing to know is that all the negative things in your chart, the things that, really were challenging for you the first half of life, the second half of life, those things start to work for you. But the main thing that you have to understand is that you have to be aware of what's happening. Now, if in my instance, let's say, if I did not become aware of what I know now, and if my ego got bent out of shape and I started saying, hey, because it has, every now and then it pops up and I start thinking, hey, I'm the best actor in the world. I need to be on camera. I'm going to go back to Hollywood. I'm going to start acting in this and that. And then I think about it and I go, do I really want to do that? No, it's just a lot of work and I don't get anything out of it, and forget about it. But if I let my ego take me down that road, I could go searching for that, and maybe like what's his name, Heath Ledger, I might end up ODing in a hotel room because I got the perfect part, but it killed me. So the thing that we need to understand with this Rahu Ketu dance is that we are here to, number one, achieve our personal desires, and we are here to serve. We are here to take our gifts. So wherever Ketu is placed, that is your gift. You have to give it away. And you have to give it away as a service. So, yeah. All right, so those are some of the ideas that I have surrounding that. That's why I have Rahu and K2 here, because Rahu and K2 are the same being. We treat them like two separate deities. We treat them like two separate planets, but in reality, they're the same being. And let me give you the mythology around Rahu and Ketu so that you have a better idea of how it works. So, according to at least one mythological teaching about Rahu and Ketu, the gods, the celestial gods, and the terrestrial gods were working together. They usually fight with each other, just like in the Norse tradition, the Aesir and the Vanir fight with each other. The Devis and the Asuras fight with each other in the Vedic tradition. And it's the same thing. It's the celestial deities versus the terrestrial deities. And so they were coming together because they had to stir the ocean of milk. And from the ocean of milk, two things were going to come out. First was poison, which Shiva Shiva drank the poison and he's holding it in his throat. That's why he's called Blue Throat. And this is why when he speaks, because the throat chakra, when he speaks his truth, it has a double edge to it. He speaks a truth that empowers you but also destroys illusion. So it's the poison that destroys the illusion, and it's the allows you to achieve awareness. So Shiva drank the poison, but then as they're stirring with the snake, there's a snake called, I think, Vasuki, and they're all stirring with this giant snake called Vasuki, which represents the spinal column, by the way. And from that, the nectar of immortality rises to the surface. Now, the celestial gods had a plan that they were going to drink all of the nectar of immortality so that they could be immortal, and so that the terrestrial gods whom they fight against wouldn't gain immortality and wouldn't have power. And so they were, they came up with this conspiracy to collude amongst themselves and take it away from the Asuras. So one of the Asuras was Rahu, and he had been given a boon by Brahma. Brahma, the god of wisdom, the god of creation. He had been given a boon by Brahma that he would be able to drink the nectar of immortality. So he knew what was going to happen. He already knew the plan, because what they had planned was that Vishnu was going to transform himself into a beautiful stripper. And he was going to dance, he was going to become this beautiful stripper woman dancing in a bikini, and he was going to be super sexy. And so he did that to distract the Asuras, because the Asuras represent the gods of fertility, the gods of magic, the gods of desire. And so they're inflamed by their lust when they're watching Vishnu dance around. And so Vishnu has the bowl full of the nectar of immortality, and he goes to the gods first. Now, because Rahu knew this was happening, he sat himself down in the group of the celestial gods in between the sun and the moon, which represents the soul and the meditative mind. And he sat himself down, he pushed his way in there and got in between the two. And he was wearing some disguise, who knows what he was wearing. And so Vishnu's dancing around and, and showing off his butt crack, and he's, wearing a thong, and he's putting his butt in the faces of all of the Asuras. Of course, he's transformed himself into this beautiful, sexy stripper woman, and so they're just like, putting dollar bills in his G-string. They've completely forgotten about the nectar of immortality, and so the gods are drinking all of it. So it comes around, it gets passed around. I don't know who does it first, either the soul or the moon drinks it, and then passes it to Rahu, who takes it, and then both the sun and the moon, which represents the mind and the soul, immediately recognize it. Now, I imagine he's got, he's got sunglasses on and a hat, and he's got a big fake nose or something, and he puts it up, and maybe his glasses come up, and they see him, and they both at the same time go, "It's an Asura! Kill him!" Because they don't want the Asuras to drink the nectar of immortality. But because he'd been given a boon by Brahma, he drank it, and as he was swallowing it, so once you swallow it, you're immortal. Once he swallows it, then Vishnu pulls out his chakra, chopped off his head. So off came his head, so the snake, and then this head, there's this body writhing around, and then this head is floating around. And the head now can't experience anything. And the body is nothing but experience. It's pure experience with no awareness, no ego. So that's why, for me, I have this natural ability. I can act, I can do, you've seen me do my Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. I can pick up flutes, I can learn how to drum, I can, anything artistic. If I feel like it, I can pick it up and master it very quickly. But I have no ego about it. I could care less about it. That's why I don't, people ask, why don't you make more CDs of your drumming? Why don't you make more CDs of your flutes? Because it bores me. Yeah, it's fun. If I'm at a party and somebody says, let's play, I'll pick up and I'll play, and it'll be a lot of fun. But I'll go weeks or months without even picking up, any instrument. That's because there's no head. K2 has no head. It's pure experience. So this is why whatever K2 is representative of, you are going to be a master of. It'll be as if you've been doing it your whole life. For instance, if yours is in the 5th house, maybe you'll pick up some instrument and you'll play it and it'll just flow out of you and you'll be like, yeah, I feel like I've been doing this my whole life. But anyway, let's get back to whatever we were doing. That's K2, because K2 has no head. Rahu is nothing but a head. He has no body, so he can't experience anything, but he can think about it. So this is why Rahu represents your obsessions, because what are the things that you think about and obsess over? That's where Rahu is. Lust, sex, money, whatever your thing is, you're a bodybuilder, muscles, martial artist, power, whatever it is, you're a politician, it's about the polls and how much you're in the polls and can you become president someday and rule the world. That's Rahu. No matter how much you achieve, it's never satisfying. Because Rahu doesn't have a stomach. He has a mouth with a tongue in it and he can taste it. He has nose, he can smell it. Oh, that food smells so good. And he chews it and it tastes so good as he's chewing it, and then he swallows and it goes right out his neck and he's still hungry. It's never enough. And then, of course, K2 is the other one. So the thing is, both Rahu and K2 both represent death. And they represent death and separation in different ways. And they will bring misery in their own way if you obsess on them. So again, if I were to obsess on my acting ability and my ego was telling me, listen, you're the best actor that's ever lived, you should be, because I do that. I'll watch movies and I'll go, that guy's totally wrong for that part. That should have been me. That's my Rahu. That's my K2 out of balance, trying to get my ego. And then I realized that it's meaningless. Everybody's forgotten about that guy. Yeah, he had that. Who was that one guy? He had that one movie. And then what happened to him? John Stamos. What? Who? What? Who is that? What's his name? But the Rahu aspect will also bring misery because it'll separate you from your soul, because your fulfillment will always come from your soul. Your soul. That's why I focus on the soul desire. Your soul desire is what's going to bring you happiness in this life. Rahu and Ketu are just the needles, the extreme needles on the compass that swing around all the time. And, whenever, you want to climb the top of Mount Everest, what do you do after you climb the top of Mount Everest? When I used to go backpacking in the Sierras, I want to climb to the top of that mountain. I'd get to the top and I'd be like, oh, what next? Oh, there's another mountain over there. Let's go climb that one. And, ultimately I stopped doing that. I would go up to the mountains and I would look up at the mountains and I would go, oh, that's beautiful. Do you want to climb it? No, I'm enjoying sitting right here next to the stream and listening to the birds. I can see it from here. I don't need to climb it. That's being happy within your own soul. All right, so let's take a look at questions. Again, if you're not familiar, I'm not talking about Western astrology. I'm talking about Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology, short answer to a long question. Vedic astrology is accurate, whereas Western astrology is off by 24 degrees. So spend as much time as you want on your Western chart. There's going to be some things about it that are right, but there's going to be some things that are always off. And when you look at your Western chart, just like, there's something about that probably because it's off. All right, so we're talking about Vedic astrology here. Let me see. Raymond Avich question. I don't have sound right now. Well, my sound is working. What do you want me to do? I can't hear what you're talking about, but I wanted to ask you. Well, if you ask me, are you going to be able to hear what I say? Can you recommend any Hindu mantra to help with living your soul's purpose? So that's a good question. Mantra needs to be given by an astrologer, because what will work for me might destroy you. For instance, I have Ketu in the 5th house. What if, your Rahu's in your 5th house? What if your Ketu's in your 11th house? And I start to tell you what I do, which is based on my 11th house, in order to be successful, and you try to do that, and it destroys, takes away all of your money, your health. So mantras are the same. And this is the sad part about even a lot of Hindu masters who go around throwing mantras around like candy. You can't know what mantra to give somebody until you've looked at their chart. So, we could talk about that, but, can I recommend a Hindu mantra to help you live your soul's purpose? Yeah, but I have to look at your chart. You have to get a reading. So you have to go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a reading from either me or from one of my apprentices who can also give you a mantra. And while I'm at it, we've got Vincent on here, and you can go to his website. You can go directly to his, vincent.thunderwizard.com, if you want to get a reading from Vincent. I've trained him and certified him. Jason Guerrero, question: what might Rahu's seductions/lessons feel or look like? He is my Ishta and Paulina Devata. I speak regularly to him. So, Rahu wants to show you your ego, your false ego. There's nothing wrong with having an identity. He wants to reveal to you your obsessions, your the things associated that will bring you misery. So he's going to try and seduce you along those lines, whatever it is. And when you are operating from your highest awareness, then Rahu cannot seduce you. And that's his whole point, by the way. The whole point of him taking you down the road of obsession and addiction and compulsion and all of that is so that eventually you'll go, yeah, I've done that for X amount of years now, and I'm still not satisfied, so I'm just going to give up. So that you'll stop trying to go after superficial things that don't mean anything to you. Rahu does that because underneath that, Rahu is actually very profound. And so there's a lot of profundity there. He wants to really teach you the secret lessons. He wants to pull back the superficiality of the world and show you what's underneath. But lots of times the only way he can get your attention is by making it all glittery and fancy, so you'll get wrapped up in the superficiality of it. But he only does that because once you realize that, that's just an illusion, then you want to look underneath. So what his seductions are for you are going to be different. Whatever, pushes your ego buttons, whatever it is that will never satisfy you. Those are the seductions. And those are the lessons. But he is your Ishta and your Paulina Devata. So as your Ishta Devata, it means that he wants to. He says, listen, I've chosen you. Jason Guerrero, Rahu says, I have chosen you, Jason. I want to show you all the secrets underneath the superficiality of this illusion. But I can only do that if you are operating from your soul. So the way to talk to him is to always have him show you what are the superficial limitations. Show me, the deception, the maya, the untruth, the illusion. Show me that in my life, how I'm going after that. So Rahu and Loki are very similar. And my experience with Loki, first off, my experience with Rahu is I used to chant to Rahu, and every time I've done it, I've always regretted it. Every time. So I don't. Now, because Rahu is your Ishta, that means you should interact with Rahu. You should talk to him. You should ask him for favors. You should ask for his help. I don't. For me, Rahu always brings me pain and misery every time that I try and connect with him. So I might not be as enlightened as you. You might be more enlightened than me because you can see past his illusions. He is your Ishta, so you should talk to him. You should talk to the Ishta. In case you don't know, there are 3 planets that operate on the 3 minds. So there's the Ishta Devata, which is the planet that shows you how to get through your conscious day. So from the moment you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep, your conscious mind is working. And this is a planet that you can talk to like your best friend. And so you should take all of your issues to Rahu, or whichever Rahu deity that you're working with. I need help finding a parking space. I need help at work. There's this guy at work, he's giving me a hard time. There's this girl, I really like her. And I don't know, I'm thinking of doing this. You should just talk to Rahu like he's your best friend. You're driving in the car, pretend he's in the seat next to you and just blab on and just get it out. And he's your Paulina Devata. So the Paulina Devata is the planet that's associated with your subconscious, not your unconscious. That's another planet. Your subconscious mind, which is in between the conscious and the unconscious. There's the subconscious. And it represents your intentions. So what we try to do with our intentions is we try to take our unconscious, true, deepest desires and try and bring it into our conscious awareness and intend it. This is what the Paulina Devata wants to do. It wants to give you the physical things that you need in your life, like money, clothes, car, jobs. And so by chanting to your Paulina Devata, which for you is Rahu, by chanting to Rahu, Rahu will give you money and clothes and stability and physical things. Paulina comes from the same root as Pal. He's your buddy. He's got his arm around you. So, and to get the most out of Rahu there, you should do a ritual to him. So if you do a ritual to Rahu, you're working with both your conscious and your subconscious, and he'll work for you. Now, the Dharma Devata, which is a different planet, this is the planet working with your unconscious. So this is all the stuff you're not aware of, both positive and negative, and by chanting to your Dharma Devata, you become aware of all the ways that you sabotage yourself, and you become aware of all of your true soul essence and your, the skills and what you're here to do. So if in doubt, I always tell people to work with their Dharma Devata unless there's something specific in their chart that says to work with one of the others, which can happen. In your case, you've got Ishta and Paulina as the same deity, so that's a pretty good indication if you want to do a ritual to Rahu or one of Rahu's deity associations, you can, and he'll be helpful for you. Ricky Green, question. Does an empty house denote a karmic mastery? No. I have multiple empty houses. No, it just means that those houses aren't activated. Now they might have, there might be some aspects, for instance, my third house, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My third house, which is my Aruda, and also houses a very important planet in my chart, which is Mars. So Mars is staring down at the 7th across from him, which is the 9th house. So my 9th house doesn't have any planets in it, but it's lorded over by the planet Mars. So even though Mars is not in that, he's looking at it from the 7th house aspect, and he's shining down on it from the sign. So that general question you've just asked, does that denote karmic mastery? It doesn't. It just means that's not the focus of this life. The focus of this life will be in where the planets are. So here's something you need to know. If you have planets in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, it means that your life will be all about physical stuff. So in other words, let's say if you have planets in all those 4 houses, there's a good chance you might, especially 10th house, you might be very famous. You might be very well off. Of course, this is general. You have to look at the exact planets. But if you have a chart like mine, I only have one planet in that house, those 4 houses, which is in the 1st house. I have Moon in the 1st house, but all of my other planets are in the 2nd house, 3rd house, 5th house, 6th house, 8th house, and 11th house. So the houses that have to do with big stuff happening in the outer world, I don't have any of that, which means that the focus of my life is internal. I've got a lot of internal things going on. This is a life of where I've got a lot of karmic stuff I have to work through. So no matter how hard I try, as you see, I work super hard at my channel. Everybody says the same thing. Oh my God, how come you don't have 1 billion subscribers? That's one reason. It's because my chart just isn't active with a planet in those houses of big stuff happening in the outer world. So no, it does not represent karmic mastery. It just means those houses aren't super activated in this life. But if you want to find out, for me, like, my ninth house is Aries, and that's a Mars sign. So if I want to see what kind of energy Aries is shining into my ninth house, I look to see where Mars is. Well, Mars is my Aruda. So my ninth house will have a flavor of my Aruda because Mars is my Aruda Lagna. Well, we could talk about the Aruda Lagna, but I don't want to put all that effort into that right now. You can go look on my channel in case you don't know. The Aruda Lagna is what will give you success in this life. You have to know what your Aruda Lagna is, what your costume is. And most people don't know what their costume is. They're trying to get people to see them for who they really are, and nobody ever sees you for who you are. They see you for how you come off to them, which is the costume that you've been born wearing that you might not even know you're wearing. I'm sort of dressed in my costume right now. It's because I know what my Aruda is. The sleeveless shirt, the bald head. I go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym sometime tonight after I'm all done with this, and all this stuff is my costume. So when you know what your costume is, it will give you success. Diamond Dane question: what house is K2 in for Libra ascendant sign? Your ascendant has nothing to do with where K2 sits. It could be in any house. So go get your Vedic chart done. I don't know, but makes me wonder, if you don't know where K2 is, but you're a Libra ascendant, are you talking about Western astrology? Because Western astrology is off by 24 degrees. So you might not even be a Libra ascendant. If you think because your Western ascendant is Libra, you think you're a Libra in Vedic, you're not. You might be, but there's a good chance you're not. 24 degrees is the majority of a whole sign. So most people's planets and signs are totally different. For instance, that's another reason. Anyway, so that question tells me you don't know the difference between Vedic and Western astrology, and you're talking to me about your Western chart. David Turner question: can you explain about the energy of the Earth and how some Qigong systems use it and others don't use it? I'm interested to know what systems don't use Earth energy. It's impossible not to tap into the Earth. It's impossible. Every time that you walk on the ground, you go toe, heel, and then heel. There are points on your heel and on the ball of your feet. They're like electrical connectors. Every time you walk, you're picking up Earth energy. It's a form of Qigong. You can't do Qigong without tapping into Earth. We're surrounded by Earth's magnetic field. So I don't know a system that doesn't use that. Maybe they emphasize something else, but that doesn't sound right to me. There's something about that. There's an incomplete understanding about what you're saying from what I'm seeing here. What is my view about practicing barefoot outside? Well, my view about that is, if it works for you, do it. Sometimes you don't want to be barefoot because you want to have a little buffer. So wearing leather-soled shoes, doing Qigong on a wooden floor, those are great. You shouldn't do it on stone. These are general rules. Don't sit on a stone and meditate on a stone. Best wood is good. That rhymes. It didn't mean to, but doing like moccasins on a wooden floor, that is a really good way of doing it. So that question sounds like a wish, which is, what is your view about practicing barefoot outside? Sounds like you're wanting me to co-sign what you do. It sounds like that's what you do. I could be wrong, and you're wanting me to tell you how great that is. But I don't see anything against it. But from a qigong perspective, based on what I was told, yeah, if you want to do it on the ground, you can have some kind of soft-soled shoe. But best is if you're doing it on a wood floor directly above the ground. That's a really good way to do qigong. Having said that, don't get too bent out of shape about the particulars and just do it wherever and however you want. Let's see. K2 Moon 11th Pisces, Judith. Is there a question? So I like for people to put effort into things. I don't want to respond to that because you don't have a question there. I really believe that, give yourself the respect of asking a question. And also, if you want to ask a question, as you see what people are doing, maybe I haven't told you this, but you should write the word question so that I see it. In all caps is best, and then in regular script after that. Because my eyes are looking for the questions. But just the phrase, K2 Moon, 11th Pisces, I don't know what to do with that. I'm happy to look at it if you ask me a question. Bharani Itusang, question. What mastery does K2 in Capricorn, first house, conjunct Uranus and Neptune signify? And how could this drain me opposed to Rahu, Mercury, retrograde in Sun and Cancer, 7th house? Now that's a specific question right there. I'm 21 years of age. Well, K2 in the first house means that in a previous lifetime, you were all about me, 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 me. You wanted all the attention. You were the person that walked in the room and soaked up all of the attention. And hey, why isn't anybody looking at me? And you were really focused on your identity, who you were. You were the guy, when you walked in, you made sure that you had all the right clothes on. People knew who you were and all of that. And then this lifetime, you're not interested in your identity. So what will drain you is if you focus on me. I want people to see me. This is who I am. Look at me, spotlight. That'll drain you. Now, you do have to go through some issues in the first half of your life about your identity. With K2 in the first house, this is a signification of just a natural shaman. Now, that might not be your calling in life, but you naturally walk in because you don't have an identity, because K2 has no head. K2 has no ego. When you walk in the room, you can feel what everybody's feeling, and you start to take on the feelings of what's happening in the room. So for instance, if you didn't know who you were and you walked into a room with a bunch of terrorists, and if you stayed with them for hours and hours, after a while you'd start to buy into their shtick and you'd become one, because actually the lower vibration of K2 is suicide terrorism. So that's like the worst aspect of K2 is, somebody who goes in and blows themselves up for some cause. Total lack of awareness of other people. Total lack of empathy for other people. So Rahu in the first, K2 in the first house means in this lifetime you are built to not be focused on your identity. And so you kind of don't really care a whole hell of a lot about who you are or how people see you. And as I said, gives you some empathic abilities. You're able to pick up and mold yourself to whatever's around you. So the opposite of that, Rahu in the 7th house. With Rahu in the 7th house, this means that in this lifetime, you're all about other people. The last one, you were all about yourself. You wanted everybody to focus on you. Hey, look at me. This one, you're all about other people. You'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, tell me about your life. And you'll go, well, I did this and I did that. And yeah, it's kind of boring. I want to hear about you. Tell me about your life. So you really want to connect with others. So much so that you can be obsessed with it. You can be obsessed with relationships, romance, people. You love being around other people. And you can see how those two connect because you don't have a big, you're not going because, like the guy who's got Rahu in the first, he goes, well, there's a party, I'm going to dress up, I'm going to be the life of that party. I need to go to parties so that I can get attention. For you, it's like, no, I need to go to parties so I can be around other people. I need to hear and connect with them. I want more friends. I want to connect with people. So the other planets in there, I don't do Uranus and Neptune because they're not part of Vedic astrology. And the reason for that is that Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, these are generational planets. They don't move a whole lot. So you have, a bunch of people born in a certain, generation, and they all have, these planets in very close proximity to each other. So it's a generational thing. Having said that, you could, but I also don't, Vedic astrology doesn't focus on it, so I don't focus on it either. So yeah, the thing is, you're empowered by being a social person and being around other people and connecting to them. You get drained when you try and focus on yourself. When you become wrapped up in your narcissism, it starts to drain you of your life force. Zeralath, question, what does it mean that I have 3 planets and Rahu in my 11th house? I don't know. It depends on the planets. It means you have 3 planets and Rahu in the 11th house. I would need to know, are they conjunct? How far away? What sign is it in? So again, you have to ask a lot more questions than that. And as you know, I don't do full readings. I did kind of more than I normally do for Bharani, but normally I don't do readings. If you want a reading on that, I recommend getting a reading from me or one of my apprentices. Whatever. Okay, let's see here. Diamond Dane question. In Vedic astrology, am I still a How do I know? How am I supposed to know? I need to know all the details, because let me explain it to you. You got to go to an astrologer and you got to give him your details. You got to give him your birth date and the city of your birth and the exact time down to the minute. Because the nakshatra of your ascendant changes every 15 minutes. So, 15 minutes could make a huge difference in your ascendant and other things as well. So I don't know, but I see here you're new to Vedic astrology. So you need to get, you can go online if you don't want to get a reading from me or one of my apprentices. If you have all the information, including location and exact time down to the minute, then you can go online and find your own chart and find out where everything is and learn. You can go to thunderwizard.com and you can get the Vedic astrology certification, and you can learn my version of Vedic astrology, and you can figure all that stuff out, or you can get a reading. Jason Guerrero question, what might K2 in the 4th house in Aries Bharani Nakshatra mean? I'm ready to shed time wasters. I'm ready to shed time wasters? What does that mean? K2 in the 4th house in Aries. Well, that means Rahu's in the 10th house. So you have to look at Rahu and K2 together because they're the same being. Wherever one emphasizes, K2 is always empowering Rahu. Rahu is taking away. So the other way one could look at it is, for instance, from my perspective, if I were to focus on acting and playing music, my Rahu is not getting what he wants. He's totally obsessed and focused on, achieving 11th house success. And here I am, playing music, and he's going to go in and pull me out of it. He's going to drain me of my life force energy and pull me in the other direction. So that's another way to look at it. So you have to look at that when you're looking at Rahu and K2. So that means K2's in your 4th house, Rahu's in your 10th house in Libra. So your focus in this life has everything to do, very likely, with business, because Libra is the sign. The balance, the weights on Libra is not balance. It's a fair trade. And that's what it means. It means the businessman, because Libra is lorded over by Venus. Venus is into money, transactions, stuff. It means that you are the, the trader out in the city square, and you're making sure that everybody gets a fair trade. They want to buy some, whatever it is, some beef jerky from you, so you're going to make sure that you give him enough beef jerky for the amount of money he's giving you. So that's a very powerful sign for a businessman. Now, I don't know the rest of your chart, but just based on that, your focus is on your career. Your focus is on your external reputation. And that's where Rahu wants to be. It means that your home, if Ketu is in the 4th house, it means that the home is where you store your stuff. It's where you sleep at night, but you don't care. Now, if your Rahu is in your 4th house, you would be decking your house with all of the finest linens, and you would want all the stuff, and you would bring people over. Look at my house. That's Rahu in the 4th. Ketu in the 4th says, people ask, where do you live? And you go, let me see, I just moved. I forget. I can get there, but it's the one. It's over on 4th Street by the. Anyway, I only sleep there three nights a week anyway. It's just where I store my stuff. That's K2 in the 4th house. Gamzer Farsi question: what does Scorpio in 9th house as Aruta Lagna signify? Again, not enough information. I need to know what planets are in there. I don't know. Are there no planets? Scorpio in the 9th house as Aruta Lagna means that people see you as the dark wizard, depending, if you had Jupiter in there, it would mean the deep priest, because Scorpio is digging deep. You would be the priest of deep wisdom, or you might be the priest of forbidden black magic. If Rahu is in Scorpio in the 9th house, you're definitely a black magician. People see you as a black magician. You should walk into the room with a dark hood and dark makeup over your eyes, and people should come to you and you should say, you should be careful of me. I'm an evil wizard. Now, if it's your Aruda, people will laugh and go, that guy, he's such a character. I love that guy. Hey, can you come over to our church and talk about, esoteric spirituality? But if it's not your Aruda and you dress up that way and you say, I'm an evil wizard, then people will lynch you, So your Aruda, even if it's negative, will always be positive. Gamzer Farsi, K2. Wow, K2 is in Scorpio in the 9th house. That means that people think that you are a mystic of the deep, dark wisdom, maybe left-hand path mystic, but you're a monk. You're a guy in the temple and you've got the incense burning and you are deep in samadhi, or they see you as this priest of what? Esoteric. You could be a monk in the woods also. So I would just research that. You can type in K2 in the 9th house. K2 in, what did you say? K2 in Scorpio. I would go on to KRS channel and type those in. K2 in Scorpio, Scorpio ascendant, because people think you're a Scorpio. When you walk in the room, they think you're a Scorpio. What is K2 in the 9th house? That's what I would look at. So it means all that good stuff. Jason Guerrero, damn Mahadeva, do you feel like you've leveled up in Vedic astrology? Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't feel that, but I'm happy if I have. Maybe. I've just gone through my Rahu K2 return, which means that every 18 years we go through a Rahu K2 return and you have a whole life change. And so I'm coming to the very tail end of it. It's going to end right after my birthday. So it's going to end, on I think the 23rd of this month. So I will have been reborn. This birthday will be like a total rebirth for me. I'll become a totally new person. And so whenever you have a Rahu Ketu return, this is a good time to really just go over your life and get rid of all the old garbage that no longer applies and think about the future and who you want to be and redefine yourself. So perhaps that, thank you for that compliment. Perhaps that might have helped. All right, so that's it for the questions. I think I've said everything I want to say. And again, let me tell you some things that are happening on the channel. So you see the click join button. That's not for this channel, that's for my other channel, which I'll write here. And if anybody, if this is an issue that you have any interest in, it is surviving BPD relationship breakup. If that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. Those, if it does mean something to you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think that's what it's called. So on there, people can join. They can join the channel directly on the YouTube channel there. And I've got a bunch of videos about healing from toxic relationships on that channel. On this channel, you can see I don't have the lockdown package. It's still there. I haven't gotten rid of it, but I'm going to soon. Lockdown.thunderwizard.com. If you want to save $2,000 on every single one of my video series and teachings and the 3 certifications, one or two, 2 certifications and one I teach you how to become a life coach, you can go do that. Do it now before I get rid of it, because I will eventually. Very soon. And if you want to help this channel out, I'm going to start putting more videos on the thunderwizard.com Patreon site about relationships, about the merging of the masculine and feminine. I'm going to start uploading more videos to those members only videos, very specific, like specific rituals, specific techniques, shamanism, and then there's the manifestation mastery course, and then there's the fusion of masculine and feminine. I'm going to start uploading to all those. The best way to support this channel, by the way, if you want to keep me on doing this, you want to help me keep the lights on, you go there and you'll subscribe. Now, I won't lie to you, COVID has done a number on my business, and my income has dropped sharply because people don't have money to spend and people are afraid. So if you want to keep me on doing this, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at whatever level you want. And then, of course, courses.thunderwizard.com for the books and the DVDs, which I'm going to start phasing out the DVDs and bring those online too. And of course, if you want to achieve enlightenment, there's 2 things I need you to do. If you do these 2 things, you will completely achieve enlightenment and you'll become a living master. And that is to subscribe and hit the bell button. Now, when you hit the bell button, you will immediately have your name plastered onto the essence of the universe, and you will have achieved enlightenment. So make sure that you do that if you haven't already. All right, Kristen Chambers has a question. That's not a question. Okay, so I try to only answer questions. All right, there you go, my friends. Nothing else going on with me. That's it. I will look forward to seeing you all very soon. Thanks for showing up, and I'll talk to you all later.